Thank you. My paper follows the paper by Professor Zamagni. I'm not going to talk about ChatGPT, unfortunately, but I will talk about research for the inclusion of persons with disabilities as a research agenda. I will first focus on the inclusive society, the notion of the inclusive society as addressed in policy documents. Then I will speak about social innovation, how social innovation helps meeting the needs of persons with disabilities. And then I have a list of good inclusive practices in health and social care. Let me begin with a general definition of a policy agenda. A list of issues or problems to which government officials and people outside government or closely associated with those officials devote some serious attention at any given time. This is a sociology of knowledge definition. It is within a policy agenda that a research agenda is about exploration, commitment, prioritization, integration, programming, and implementation. A policy agenda is laid out to make explicit what a state requires of researchers to relate their study to real-world problems, to validate their own research, and to access research funds allocated by a government. A research agenda is about evaluating different research options, which in turn leads to recommendations for a reorientation of policy making. Now, in Europe, I'm talking about the context I know best. In Europe, we have the framework programs for research and innovation. They were started in 1984. Now we are running the 9th research framework program. And they have evolved from supporting cross-border cooperation in research and technology to a truly European coordination of activities and policy. Let me tell the story of Societal Challenge 6. Societal Challenge 6 has this title, Understanding Europe in a Changing World, all right? But then it's inclusive, innovative, and reflective society. That's the story. This has been the main science policy objective of the European Union's 8th framework program, Horizon 2020, which was adopted on 10 December 2013. Now, I imagine our member, Rocco Buttiglione, knows very well, this was an initiative of the European Parliament. And it had been shaped by the committee ITRE, Industry, Research, and Energy. The rapporteur was the former Minister of Research of Portugal, Madame Maria Carvalho da Graça, but she was flanked by Patrizia Toia, by Silvia Costa, and by Christian Helia. So they are all important representatives of the European Popular Party. So we can say this is something that comes from where we are. And so they had, so the policy objective, Societal Challenge 6, was agreed to provide funding instruments to support social sciences and humanities research on horizontal issues such as the creation of smart sustainable growth, social and cultural transformation in European societies, political inclusion and democratic participation, and social innovation. That's the point. I'm going back to social innovation. The goal was, of this research agenda, to synthesize and make accessible research funding for the inclusion of persons with disabilities. That was very clear. Supporting inclusive, innovative, and reflective society, that was stated by the rapporteur, Maria Carvalho da Graça, was a prerequisite for sustainable cohesion. Now, we have switched, the Horizon 2020 was from 2014 to 2020. Now we have Horizon Europe from 2021 to 2017. And the inclusive society in Horizon Europe is addressed in Cluster 2 of Pillar 2, which has the title Culture, Creativity, and Inclusive Society. I'm a philosopher. I lamented that the reflective society has been dropped. Actually, I wrote a paper on the journal run by Laura Paoletti, where have all reflective societies gone? Sorry, but it's important for us. But anyway, cluster 2 of pillar 2, we have very clear the transition to new forms of work, ensuring the social inclusiveness of such transformations and attracting, protecting, retained a skilled workforce. So that the reduction of inequalities and social exclusion has been recognized in policy issues as a key challenge for the development of science policies for an inclusive society. So this is very clear. Now, second part, social innovation for the inclusive society. The inclusion of persons with disabilities depends on social services, which in turn are provided by social infrastructure. Social infrastructures are a powerful tool for creating inclusive growth and strengthening the social fabric of a country. Tool for development because of the impact of people. I'm talking about education, long-term education, health services, long-term health care services, and urban regeneration. Social innovation, this is an interesting topic, occurs when a service responds positively to societal issues, and it's three questions, very simple. Does it solve the problem? Does it cost right? And is it universally accepted? We have the President of the Republic of Portugal, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, who stated in a speech he gave at Gulbenkian Foundation, I was there, it was opening up an era of social innovation. He said, social innovation should be the backbone of all European research policies. This is very bold, and as far as I know, it's European, so it's something that we are committed. So now, social and cultural innovation put together is a concept that has been, so it's a social science and humanities research infrastructures in Europe, and it's currently meant to cover about 11 research infrastructures out of 63. These research infrastructures are the European Social Survey, which is a very important topic, instrument for seeing what happens in the European population, share the research infrastructure for aging population, and then we have research infrastructures for cultural heritage, we have research infrastructures for common language. So it's an important part of research effort here in Europe. Now, let me talk about inclusion in education. Since the launch of the 8th Framework Program for Research and Innovation, European science policy has been implementing a threefold aim. A, strengthening social, economic, and political inclusion. B, fighting poverty. And C, promoting human rights, digital and educational inclusion, equality, solidarity, cultural diversity, and intercultural dialogue. I'm quoting from policy document. Digital technologies support the inclusion of diverse student groups in education in several ways, including improving the accessibility of educational content, increasing personalization, and providing distance learning opportunities. People with disabilities have equity issues, and as my colleague, philosopher Thomas Scanlon argued, equity matters. Two concepts have emerged. First, digital equity in education, defined as the distribution and use of tools in a way that does not disadvantage or reduce the learning opportunities of certain groups. The digital equity. Second, digital inclusion, defined, it's a OECD the definition, minimizing digital inequalities, thereby widening access and also improving the quality of teaching and learning with the intention of providing a fair and equitable education. Hence, many lines of research, study, and experiment with models of inclusive situations implemented with the support of digital technologies. There is a policy document of UNESCO on this. Now, E/inclusion addresses the relationship between education and students with special education needs. For instance, people with disabilities, but also migration children, learning disabled, or people who are unable to attend school normally. And inclusion is modeled on the notion of inclusion as it was defined by UNESCO in another policy paper that goes back to 30 years ago, in 1994, which envisions the inclusion of students with problems no longer simply within an already structured, open, but essentially immobile system, but rather through the creation of learning situations and communities that can dynamically structure themselves within themselves based on the characteristics and needs of individuals. So E-inclusion is the first line of research. But then we have other lines of research. I'm just talking about good practices. But although most teachers are informed about the functioning of the mind and the brain and are often involved in training activities on the subject, which is what Stefano Domani was talking about, research has shown an alarming diffusion in several countries of neuromyths, that is, beliefs resulting from an oversimplification of neuroscientific findings in the field of education. Educational neuroscience is concerned with the study of variables that can maintain a student motivation and a good attitude towards challenges and possible difficulties. Scientific evidence suggests that a growth mindset is crucial to promote a positive attitude towards studies and school activities, especially in students traditionally associated with greater failure. In the Italian context, there is a law that has recognized dyslexia, dysorthographia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia as specific learning disorders. Therefore, it is necessary to emphasize the importance of the individualized and personalized teaching to promote the use of compensatory tools and dispensatory measures and to protect the right to learning of people with disabilities. It was actually this law of 2010 that has implemented the inclusion in the teaching force of teachers who were assigned to individual students, insegnanti di sostegno. One of the critical aspects of independent living in groups of people with intellectual disabilities, especially the Down syndrome, is a need for a constant presence of an educator in the organization of the educational apartments provided by the community. Researchers aim to extend and complete the functionalities offered by cloud mobile platforms so that they can provide comprehensive support to people with intellectual disabilities who experience independent living. This is what Stefano Domani was talking about in a more advanced fashion. In the smart home vision, so this is another line of research, researchers are investigating how ambient-assisted living modules can be extended and adapted to support independent living in shelter and housing for people with intellectual disability. Finally, social sharing systems allow the sharing of digital resources that are useful for visual rehabilitation and evaluation of proven accessibility in the field where anyone can collaborate, users with disability, their families, schools, and rehabilitation professionals. Aggregators of softwares, games, videos, self-created resources, links, and information accessible to the entire large community of professionals and family members are set up to improve the skills and abilities of children with visual impairments or person with disability, which gives a person with disability the opportunity to grow and reach their full potential. This is also what Stefano was talking about in a more recent setting. After all, and here I have a quote by Pope Francis, after all, one of the strengths of our society is the education and research that takes place in universities. However, too many people with disabilities find it difficult to access this right to study due to numerous barriers and obstacles. Pope Francis in 2015 pointed out that the university experience of students with disabilities poses significant challenges for them and for their teachers. These challenges often stem from a lack of accessible resources and a lack of digital skills among academic staff to adequately address the needs of fragile students. Teachers and accessibility liaisons often do not know how to support students with disabilities. There is an undeniable gap in cross-national research on the specific needs of students with disabilities with regard to accessible educational materials and the needs that arise from distance learning, as well as the knowledge and experience of academic staff and accessibility liaisons in universities with regard to different forms of accessible materials and the provision of courses in accessible distance learning. This is something I experienced in Tor Vergata, where there is a number of disabled persons that get their degrees with some effort, but with great satisfaction of everybody. I have 4 lines to conclude. In conclusion, social sciences and humanities, as well as their 21st century offspring, and here I talk about computational social science, cultural analysis, innovation, social innovation, cultural innovation, innovation, religious studies, lie at the basis of this dream of Europe as an innovative, reflective, and inclusive society. The experience of Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe has made it clear that the best way to implement interdisciplinarity with the full involvement of social science and humanities is collaborating in an atmosphere of mutual respect. Here too, reflection is mobilized, is needed, to involve social science and humanities in research in all fields of science for the benefit of social innovation, which, as I said, ought to be the backbone of all European science policy. Thank you.